Hey guys, what's up? I'm Srinigate and welcome back to the channel. In the previous video, I reviewed the BS6 version of the Pulsar RS200 and a lot of guys seem to be confused between the NS and the RS. Of course, the 200cc siblings from Bajaj. So in today's video, we'll get that confusion out of the way and compare both of these bikes in detail. Let's get started.
The NS and the RS. These are two bikes which are so similar yet so different. You see, both of them come from the same brand, have the exact same cycle parts and technical specs, but they still feel really different in terms of their character and riding feel. Both these bikes are basically the same underneath with small differences here and there. So let's get the technical differences out of the way first. Please note that these are the latest BS6 versions of the bikes we are talking about. Talking about the specs, both get the exact same 199cc single-cylinder SOHC liquid-cooled fuel-injected 4-valve over-square motor in the BS6 versions, which was not the case with BS4. They produce the exact same power at 24.5 PS, while the torque figure is slightly lower on the NS at 18.5 Nm. The RS, for instance, gets 18.6 Nm, which is 0.1 Nm higher. Again, not a significant difference like the BS4 had. In terms of cycle parts, they get the same chassis, suspension and braking hardware, but slight differences can be felt here as well. Both get a twin spar, or what Bajaj likes to call it, the perimeter frame, with slight different dimensions. The RS has a slightly aggressive steering geometry, making its wheelbase 18mm shorter than the NS, and this difference can be felt while riding. We'll talk about it a bit later. Coming to the suspension, they get identical hardware. Both get conventional 37mm telescopic forks up front and a nitrox monoshock at the rear with pre-load adjustability and the same box section swing arm. Here though, the tuning is different as the RS has a suspension which is set up for track and road use, while the NS has been set up keeping only on-road use in mind. Tire and wheel sizes are same at 100/80 17 up front and a 130/70 17 at the rear. Braking is where major differences lie. Both share the same brakes with a 300mm disc up front and a 230mm disc at the rear. Now, the RS gets dual channel ABS as standard, while the NS does with single channel ABS with RLM, which stands for rear lift mitigation. Now this is a major differentiating factor which also justifies the higher price tag of the RS200. The ground clearance is more on the NS at 168mm, while that of the RS is 157mm. We will talk about it later. Seat height is pretty much the same at 805mm for the NS, while that of the RS is 800mm, which is slightly lower. Although the shape of the seats is different as the NS gets a more rounded off narrow seat, while the RS has a flatter and a wider seat with more stiffer cushioning. Seating posture on these bikes is actually more similar than you think it is, as the RS, despite being a fully fed track bike, has the most relaxed ergonomics of any track focused bike out there, and its posture is very similar to a naked street fighter, just like the NS. Yes, there are still some differences like low clip-ons and a very slightly rear set foot pegs, again compared to the NS, and a flatter, wider seat. In all, it's not a very considerable difference. You'll only feel tired on the RS if you're touring for some seriously long distances. That's how relaxed it actually is. On the other hand, the NS has proven to be a great 200cc tourer and commuter due to its near perfect ergonomics. You can't go wrong with both of them when it comes to ride comfort. You must have noticed that I've used the word slightly way too many times in this video till now, which tells you how similar yet different these bikes actually are. So, moving the tangible differences out of the way, let's compare these two in terms of the riding experience. The BS6 RS200's power delivery is pretty much the same after its BS4 to BS6 transition. Power comes in a very linear manner, although all the power lies in the top end. In case of the NS, its power delivery has changed considerably over the BS6 update. Till BS4, the NS was carbureted and this gave it a characteristic surge at 7000 RPM, where the engine used to open up and pull even harder. In the BS6 update, this well-known surge has been diluted as the power delivery has gotten more linear. Compared to the RS, the NS feels more peppy in the bottom end and mid-range due to different sprocketing. That's because the NS gets a slightly shorter sprocket set as compared to the RS, which makes it accelerate even better and feels more lively, but it does compromise its top speed. According to tests done previously by publications, the RS can hit a top speed of around 150 km/h, while the NS can manage 140. This also comes down to aerodynamics as the RS has better wind protection due to a fairing. The peppy performance of the NS is also due to a big advantage it has over the RS, which is the advantage of weight. The RS weighs 166 kg, which is 10 kgs more than the NS. You see, these small capacity bikes are really sensitive to weight, and in this case, the RS is really heavy for what it essentially is, a 200cc motorcycle. That does make it bogged down at the bottom end, and the in-gear acceleration isn't as instant as that of the NS. You have to downshift for a quick overtake on both of them, more so for the RS. Handling on both of these bikes is pretty similar. Despite that, the sharper steering geometry of the RS does make its front end feel more communicative, more direct than the NS. Well, this difference is pretty minute and most of the riders won't be able to feel it. The suspension on the RS is very slightly stiffer as compared to the NS, although not as much as some other fully fed bikes. The NS200 is well known for and is loved for its off-road capability, and that's due to its low weight and higher ground clearance. As I was talking about earlier, the ground clearance on the RS can be an issue as the underbelly exhaust does touch big speed breakers with the pillion on board. High speed on both of these bikes is impressive, but the RS feels more stable, more planted at high speeds. Braking on both bikes is pretty impressive as it offers good stopping power and confidence. The RS offers dual channel ABS while NS only comes with single channel ABS. The brakes on the NS have better feel compared to the RS, but the feedback on both is slightly missing. Brake feel is an area which can be improved on both the bikes as brakes on them feel wooden. This issue can be solved by swapping the brakes for KTM pads or aftermarket sintered pads, but from factory, the brakes don't have the sort of feel which is expected from bikes like these. In terms of looks, well, looks are subjective. Some people love the RS for its looks while some absolutely hate it as the design of the RS is very polarizing. The NS200 though looks timeless as the design is more matured, more subtle and sophisticated. Especially some details like those demon-eyed DRLs, the shape of the tank and tail section. That has resulted in a huge cult following for the NS. In terms of features though, the RS obviously has an upper hand. It gets dual channel ABS to start with, twin projector headlamps which work really well at night and a more detailed instrument cluster along with factory fitted LED indicators borrowed from its orange siblings. But even in 2020, these bikes don't get more detailed instrumentation with Bluetooth connectivity which its rivals offer. On the top of that, the NS not getting an LED headlamp during the BS6 update was a big bummer for a lot of fanboys out. Based on all the differences in terms of the riding feel, you can clearly see a difference in terms of personalities, and that is what differentiates them from each other. So which one is better for you? Well, it all depends on the type of rider that you are and what you like. Because let's face it, every individual has a different taste, which is true in terms of the bike's feel as well. Because the feel, the character of the bike is what you buy for and not just the specs and features. For the verdict, I'd say those who are looking for a feature-packed motorcycle with decent performance for long distance touring and absolutely have to have dual channel ABS in their lives, the RS200 is still a really good competitor in the 200cc segment and generally below 2 lakhs. On the other hand, those who are looking for a super value for money motorcycle with great performance and are willing to compromise on some features, the NS200 is still the best in this segment in terms of value. Also, the price difference between them is around 20,000 rupees, which can also be a key decision maker. So now let's check out the exhaust notes of both of these bikes back to back in order to judge which one sounds better. The RS200 is a really sweet sounding motorcycle, especially due to the raspy exhaust note. The NS200 as well has been improved in terms of the exhaust note, especially after the BS6 update, as it now sounds more throaty and much better than the BS4 version. Talking about the mileage on these bikes, the NS200 will definitely return a bit more mileage compared to the RS as it is substantially lighter at 10 kgs lighter than the RS, which means that you don't need to rev it as hard to get the most performance out of it. But that will definitely return a better mileage as compared to the RS, so you can easily expect around 35 to 38 kmpl on the NS200, both city and highway combined. As for the RS, it is really heavy for what a 200cc motorcycle is, and also a lot of performance lies on the top end, so you have to rev it all the time to get the most performance out of it. So you can expect at least 2 to 3 kmpl lesser than the NS200. Now a lot of guys will get better mileage on the RS as well, but it all depends on the riding style of the person. Talking about the pricing, the NS200 has been priced at 1.29 lakhs for the latest BS6 version, which is around 20,000 rupees less than the RS200. The RS200 is priced at 1.48 lakhs after the recent price hike during the lockdown, which translates to around 1.55 lakhs on road for the NS200 and 1.75 lakhs on road for the RS200 pan India. And at these price points, they are still really value for money compared to their competition at the...
So that's pretty much it. That was a detailed comparison between the BS6, the latest versions of the Pulsar RS200 and the Pulsar NS200 from my side. Let me know in the comments down below what more bikes do you want me to compare on this channel in the future. For that, you know what you have to do, which is hit that like button and subscribe to the channel right away. Special thanks to Pagariya Bajaj for providing me both of these bikes for review, especially the BS6 versions of these bikes for review and comparison. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.